thought it was like, hemp and big stacks and unattractive clothing.
Right.
Op shopping was about, and obviously people went op shopping, but I think it was still very much a poor person activity, which it definitely is not right now. Everyone op shops, but I think there's a negative perception, unfortunately, around that time
I see.
of slow fashion.
So even though you just said that because of the social media, we're now connected, and which is true, of
Mm.
course. And but still, what do you see a biggest challenge right now that you think it's still having online, or people need to be more aware of about sustainability that we're not
Well,
focusing online?
there's a lot of greenwashing and a lot of misinformation out there. Like, sometimes I come across posts and they have no source of what they're like, they're claiming a fact, but there's no source, or the source is like, 30 years old. And it's like things have changed since then. Like, even the reliable source that I used to use in my presentations of, I think it was 7,000 tons of clothing goes to landfill every 10 seconds or whatever. That's probably much more now. And that was like, 5 years ago,
Right.
6 years ago or so. Like, it's misinformation and greenwashing is so big out there.
So I mean that makes of course that makes sense, and I think the brands should be more transparent about where they're sourcing about the material if they claim to be
Mm.
sustainable. And I think even though I think sustainability is the only way right now to live for the fashion brands, of course, we're the second most polluted industry in the world. So I think a lot of governments also pushing nowadays to the big companies to
Yes.
to be going the sustainable side. But yes, the thing is that most of the brand is going for the greenwashing. So that's a big concern, and I actually didn't find any quiet answers like how they're gonna be preventing from greenwashing to stop the brands. But that's what the second part comes in. You have to be transparent about
Yeah.
the source and all that. So
Yeah.
that makes sense.
Yeah. Greenwashing is a big one. It's hard to overcome as a consumer as well, or as someone who's interested in fashion, because you can't really just take a peek at what the brand is doing and see what they're producing or where they're getting their stuff from, because sometimes it's so closely guarded and hidden, and their sustainability reports or whatever report can sometimes take, like, it's very hard to read them sometimes if you don't know what you're looking for. So unfortunately, you have to sort of train yourself to see through greenwashing, which can be difficult at times and tiring at times. So I think we just all need to, when we see a quote or when we see something saying they're sustainable, we just need to second guess it and do more research.
Right. Exactly.
Unfortunately.
So we're gonna be coming again to your social media, and of course, our past what we're talking about is about secondhand clothing. So I know that that's your one of the favorite topics too. So please, the people, I'm sure a lot of people know about the secondhand clothing, but how the industry works or how it can support in a sense of being sustainable and reusing and repurposing our clothes.
Yeah, that's a huge topic. I don't know if we can cover it in a small amount of time, but I can touch on what I know. My view of the secondhand industry is like I work in a consignment style store at the moment. So we buy and sell clothing on like a buy sell trade model. So if you bring in clothing and we like it, we pop a price on it and make you an offer of cash or store credit. The place in Melbourne that I work at is called Mutual Muse. So I've been there for 6 years. I have actually just resigned for another job, but I still enjoy this industry. I'm not going anywhere away from the slow fashion industry. It's just taking a step back from customer service industries. So yeah, with a secondhand model, I think that, it's fantastic. I want everyone to buy secondhand as much as they possibly can because we have so much out there and it keeps being produced. But I do think there's no way you can capture every single every single piece of clothing that's made in the world. Like you can't capture in the secondhand model because the person uses it and they might throw it out, or they don't know where to dispose of it, so they just throw it out, or they dump it outside a op shop and then it gets thrown into the bin, or they break it and it goes to the bin. Like keeping things in a circular motion is actually quite hard if you aren't informed of where things to go, or there's not facilities in your area, or you just can't access those facilities for whatever reason. So I think it's good to have different models. So a consignment store is a really good model as well, but then you can also rent a rail. Like these are just the ones I know about and have experienced. You can rent a rail in like a store and sell your clothing on that. You can obviously take your clothing to the op shop. You can obviously give your clothing to a friend. I also host clothing swaps around Victoria. We are known as the Clothing Exchange. So we partner with local councils and we will hold a clothing swap for them, which are very, very popular. And we have hundreds of people coming to these clothing swaps in Sydney and in Melbourne. So that's a good way to, like, you don't need to go to a clothing exchange event. You can do a clothing swap in your own family, in your own friendship group, in your own city, whatever.